Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Space Game Junkie podcast. I, as always, am your co-host, Brian, and joining me, as always, is your co-host, Jim.
No shields. That's the way we do it.
It's the only way to fly. No shields. And welcome back, your co-host, Hunter.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Yay!
I'm glad to be back.
Perfect show for you to come back to. I was hoping you'd come back for this one because you're very passionate about at least one of these games, if not all of them, but one in particular.
What are you trying to say, Brian? What are you trying to say?
You're an Alliance apologist? I'm kidding.
Whoa. No. I love the X-Men series as a whole. You got to embrace. You either like all of it or you don't like it at all. It's one extreme or the other. That's how I roll.
Yeah.
But I just think Alliance was far too Alliance focused.
Well, we'll talk about that.
But we'll talk about that.
We will talk about that. And joining us.
We'll talk about that.
Joining us from his own Upper Memory Blog podcast and Star Trek aficionado. You have a Star Trek podcast as well, a Star Wars podcast.
Star Wars.
Yes. Please. Sorry. What is the name of the Star Wars podcast you run?
We don't hawk the Trek around here.
Not today, at least.
Yeah, maybe we do.
How long has the Star Wars thing been going on?
That's been going on for 2 years or so. It's called the Star Wars Stacks. I'm Joe. Hey.
Hi, Joe. So tell us about this podcast that I've for some reason never heard of, despite knowing you for several years.
Please,
right.
Yes.
So
obviously your PR sucks.
Probably, yeah. Or maybe it doesn't fly into your circles because it's not a gaming show. It's a Star Wars book club. So basically, we read what used to be Star Wars EU novels, and now what are
I am
canon
so sorry.
novels.
Why do you do that to yourself?
I've read some comic books.
Oh, they're good.
No, they're not. Most of them are terrible. Most of them are just.
Wow, really?
I've read a lot of them, and well, okay, I stopped after the Jedi Academy trilogy because that was just awful.
There was a run
you
kind
missed,
of in the
you
late.
missed a lot.
Yeah, there was a run kind of in the early 2000s and late 90s, early 2000s where they got a little meh, and then
I did read
it's like anything.
The Darth, what's his name? The ancient
Plagueis?
Sith guy? No. Darth. He was a big muscly guy. Sith guy and.
Not Plagueis. No, not Plagueis.
Whoa, big muscly Sith guy.
No, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Bane.
yeah, Bane. Darth Bane. Yeah, I read those books. Those are pretty good.
Bane.
I really yes. I really want to read the
Bane. That's my name.
I really want to read the Ahsoka book as well.
That is actually the next book we're reading on the podcast.
Okay. I might have to tune in because I might have to actually read it now.
To be fair though, Brian, there was a lot of stuff that happened before, like some of that bad stuff that Joe's talking about between like the late 90s and early 2000s. There was a lot of stuff that came out before that was actually relatively good, and not necessarily just the books too. There's actually a lot of the comic book series I was a big fan of too,
really?
All of the Tales of the Jedi stuff. I just ate that alive. I loved it.
When I left you, I was but a learner. Now I am the Batman.
I never read the comics.
Well, then there was also like the Dark Empire series, which was pretty good. I rather enjoyed that too.
I'm gonna do that Bane voice all night. By the way, I'm just prepped for it.
I do like how certain bits of the EU are coming into the canon, like Admiral Thrawn on Rebels, which I'm still catching up on. But he's just as awesome on Rebels as he was in the books, so that's exciting.
Well, that's just it though. Like you've only seen him a few times in Rebels. Like he hasn't really. His presence, in my opinion, hasn't been fully felt yet.
Yeah.
Right, and I think they're doing that on purpose. Yes. But he's Thrawn. Like he's Thrawn through and
through.
Oh,
definitely.
Oh god.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. I get chills. They're multiplying every time I see Thrawn because I'm like, wow, they nailed it. They perfectly nailed it.
Well, I think they nailed it simply because they had the originator like assisting with that.
Yeah, I think Zahn was in on it.
Yeah, he's rewriting his backstory. So
there's
a book coming out in I think it's April. A new Thrawn novel is coming out by Timothy Zahn.
Really?
Yeah,
yes,
it's a retelling to fit into the new canon. So I'm kind of curious to see how they interweave it because his old plot line was very interesting. It got a little weird towards the end, but
that duology thing that came out. way
Or
back.
where there's like multiple clones of him and shit like that happened. Or
What?
something. I don't know.
Oh my god! Really?
Look, in a lot of ways, that's why I'm glad they did sort of chuck the EU, because it was just getting complicated.
It was a mess. It just got way too complicated. So I'm kind of glad they simplified things, but there are things I miss. Now, am I remembering, and spoilers for Rebels a little bit, am I remembering that there are TIE defenders now in Rebels?
Yes.
Yes, or at least we have seen their blueprints or whatever.
Oh, that's
the
very
plans
exciting.
for the TIE defender.
They have a picture of it, and you're like, that is definitely a TIE defender.
Ooh, that's very exciting. I'm like 4 or 5 episodes into the current season so far. It's very good. It started off kind of shitty, but crappy, but it's really gotten good.
It started off the same as Clone Wars. It was I found it very kiddie, and now they they ramped it up.
Yeah,
I am kind of curious though where they're going. I haven't seen the latest episode if they've had one. Have they had the Obi-Wan confrontation yet?
I think the first episode of the second half of season 3 has aired. I think.
I haven't seen it yet, so
I haven't either. So
I'm a little leery of the whole like keeping the mall thing going. I really honestly want that to be done.
I would like that too. I would like that too.
Yeah.
I'm tired.
I didn't like
mall.
any of the mall stuff. Yeah,
No.
even in Clone Wars, I didn't really care for that whole thing. I'm like, yeah.
It's
like people really wanted him to be back, and I was like, well, if he didn't clearly die in episode 1, because I don't know how a half body could survive that fall, but whatever.
Or a whole body.
I know they explained it. You know, I know they explained it in some roundabout weird way, but still, it just is like, it's just bump. Hey, my legs are back. Oh. Anyway. You know, yeah. So I'm really kind of curious about that, and the other thing that kind of just irks me is the 20-year aging, or excuse me, the 40-year aging of a 20-year gap for Obi-Wan Kenobi. You know, like he got really old in a short period of time, in my opinion.
Well, he lives in the desert.
Yeah, 20 years.
He lives in the desert.
Yeah,
it's
really dry. It just kind of dried him out.
Yeah, he lives in the desert. All his friends are dead. All he has to do is watch over this annoying kid.
And practice.
Yeah, we're going to Tashi Station.
And practice that thing that Yoda was.
What was the deal? They did they did a comic book or something about Kenobi.
There's a novel. There's a novel. So technically, that novel is not canon anymore. But
is it the same one that I'm thinking of? Is it the one that I'm thinking of where it was from the perspective of Luke reading through his diaries, or is it a different one?
No, this is a different one. It's called Kenobi. It's by John Jackson Miller. We interviewed him on the podcast, so we like John Jackson Miller.
Is that one? Is it good? Is it a good novel?
It is actually. We have found on the podcast that Kenobi right now is our benchmark for probably the best EU novel we've read.
Really?
Yes. Just from the perspective of that, it's a good book. Like, it is a good book that you want to read, that has interesting characters. And yeah, it's a really
well. There was another book. I've definitely, from what I've understood, because I haven't finished it. I read the first couple of chapters, I think, in like a Barnes and Noble one day or something. But I think it was geared towards more of a younger audience than a generic average reader would be. But it was being told from this perspective of Luke on Tatooine constructing his lightsaber in Obi-Wan's old house. That time period between Empire and Jedi, where it's technically also during that Shadows of the Empire time frame of the old EU, where he's actually like studying how to construct a lightsaber, and when he's there, he discovers a cellar that has some of Kenobi's old journals in it, and so you're reading about like the life of Obi-Wan Kenobi through the eyes of Luke reading his journals. Kind of interesting.
I'll have to read that too.
Conceptually, yeah.
Kenobi
right, I'm seeing there's a Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi Jedi Knight young readers book. It might be that. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm just like Amazoning.
I'll have to read them both. Kenobi's my favorite Star Wars character, followed closely by
It's a
Ahsoka.
really, really, really good book. Yeah.
Ahsoka has become pretty much my second favorite Star Wars character, like of all.
So, Joe,
I think it's the life and legend of Obi-Wan Kenobi. I think is what it is.
So, Joe, I have to ask you. Well,
Yes,
two
sir.
things. First off, there was that fan theory that went around about like how they could have rewritten just a little bit there about Kenobi and Padme and like made it a weird love triangle thing. Like she was all about Obi-Wan and Anakin was all about her, but why would she want anything to do with this kid until he gets all Jedi powerful and mind tricks her into loving him kind of thing. But her and Obi-Wan might have had a thing, and that could be the reason for like, you, Anakin, you take her to Naboo, right? Because it's really awkward right then. But the twins could be Kenobis potentially.
That's actually been a fan theory even before Episode 1 came out. I remember debating with a buddy of mine about this concept of what helped to drive Anakin to the dark side, which was there was an alleged affair with Kenobi, and at the time we didn't know her name was going to be Padme, but his wife, I guess. And then there was also the fan theory of how he got into the suit, which was he like fell into a pool of lava during a fight with Kenobi and walked out alive. But of course, you saw how that kind of turned out. It was a stupid joke about having the high ground. But anyway.
Yeah, but how is it? Okay, was it actually like Lucas had said way back in the when that's how it happened to somebody, and then that was the thing all along? Or did Lucas take that fan thing and run with it and just be like, yeah, the lava?
So the chicken or the egg, who knows?
Right. So the one place that I remember reading this story, and the way I remember it is that he Anakin and Obi-Wan, or maybe he was Vader at that point, I don't know, were fighting on the edge of a lava pit. Anakin fell in, and Obi-Wan pulled him out at the last minute before he died to show him the goodness of the Force or whatever, of the light side. And yeah, the first time I ever read that was in Star Wars Screen Entertainment, if you remember the screensaver.
Oh God, yes. Back in the days back in the days when they sold like Star Trek screensavers and After Dark and those kind of entertainment savers. Yeah, and it had like
this one screensaver thing was these bios that would show up about different things like ships and characters and whatever. And in the backstory of Obi-Wan, or was it Obi-Wan? No, it was. It might have even been in the Obi-Wan backstory where it talked about this. So that's I think really the only place I had ever actually read that story. And it was from LucasArts, so it's official. I mean, I don't know.
Is it?
So number two.
So was Shadows of the Empire. But anyway, I digress.
Right. I mean, it was official at the time.
Second question, then let's go to the topic.
So second question is the big one right now, because they just dropped the name of Episode 8. And I'm getting like a Highlander thing here. Like,
there can be only one.
There can be only, yeah. But there's always.
Is Clancy Brown going to be the bad guy? That'd be amazing. I would.
The biggest theory that I've seen running around about that, and Joe, tell me what you think too. But
sure.
I've been reading a lot of people thinking because they're looking at the Knights of Ren as the new Sith. And they're saying, like in the title crawl of 7, they called Luke the Last Jedi in the title crawl of 7. Now, this could be ambiguous to say like the Jedi are over, and that there's going to be some new kind of order potentially, like some new kind of light side thing. It's like a rebranding, like we're rebranding.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly possible.
Now, well, what I'm thinking is that it's actually the tree. The tree is the Last Jedi.
Because,
yeah.
Oh, the damn tree. I really hope that's not. I hope to God that's not true. I hope to God that theory is not true.
The Jedi tree. The Jedi
No.
game tree.
Yeah,
that tree is so right out the window of the Millennium Falcon. I mean,
Dude, it's in so
excited.
many of the shots of that new island on that planet. Oh god, I hope that theory isn't true.
Folks,
You know what theory? Do you guys know the theory?
No.
Yeah,
do
the
I want to know the
left
theory?
and
Do I want to know the
Obi-
theory?
Look,
Obi
this
Treebeard.
this could be major spoilers, and it could be complete
Bullshit.
BS.
Okay. Well, what is it? I
But
mean,
what I read was
it's a theory
what I
as
read
of right.
was
It's a theory as of right now, so it's not like it's. I mean, if
Rey is actually the reincarnation of the first Jedi.
what?
And that the first Jedi,
Uh-huh.
her and her brother, there was these two siblings. I don't know why they're freaking siblings.
Uh-huh.
Were with their family on this new planet, and
Uh-huh.
they were playing by this tree that was imbued with the Force, and it gave them the Force. The brother got corrupted by it and killed the sister, and this is the reincarnation of her.
Wait, so this
years later, which is why Luke had to put her into hiding in the first place to keep her safe, because he figured it out.
Wait, so
And then he had to go off
so
and
Cain and
like,
Abel caught midichlorians from a tree,
Yes.
and then
Pretty much.
okay,
Yes. But this is the hallmark of Star Wars, right? Because if you remember in the Clone Wars, there's that whole thing where Anakin goes to they're on that like weird in the space thing with the dad and the two kids that are like pure light side, pure dark side, and like Anakin can keep them in balance. And then it harkens back to Luke and Leia being twins. They're both in the Force. It's kind of a thing. Like if this is true though, and I'm hoping to God it's not. If this is true though, it's gonna end it for me. I'll be
how
done.
are we going to save Star Wars from JJ, the destroyer of franchises?
Well,
It seems like he's less involved.
let's go back. Let's go back,
So
my friend.
we're talking about
Yes.
X-wing
Let's go
and
back.
TIE Fighter.
Let's go back to a happier time. 24 years
Before
ago.
Before all this JJ headcanon like
20
exploded into reality.
24 years ago, 1993. That's where our story begins. The real
That's
story.
back whenever we had mysteries and questions and anything was possible.
It was that 10 years after Return of the Jedi. We got some games, you know. We got what? Dark Force? No, Dark Forces was after this, wasn't it? What were there?
Yeah.
What Star Wars games were between? There were some arcade games, like
There was some Atari games.
Yeah, you had
games.
like the Atari games, and you had like a couple of arcade games.
Yeah, there was that like Vector arcade.
Yeah, and then there was Return of the Jedi.
Really good.
Then there was Return
there was
of the
Star
Jedi.
Wars, the arcade game.
Return of the
And
Jedi, the
then
arcade game, which was excellent.
Right,
Hard
which
as
is
fuck.
very rare.
Hard as fuck,
I've
but
played it.
excellent. Yeah,
Great game.
Very hard.
I've only
but
seen it
excellent.
on MAME. I've never seen the real animal.
Oh, the real animal is
So-
very difficult. Very, very difficult.
Yeah. And then they came out when was it that they did the Star Wars trilogy in the arcade? Was that like 97, 98?
Ooh,
might
I
have been a
think
little
so.
later.
That
but-
was later. That was
It was
later. That
90s,
was
not
way
2000s though.
No,
No.
I think
Well,
it was 90s. I remember because I visited.
Well, it was on the
Yeah, and they had this.
it
like,
was on the Genesis the CD thing,
All right.
Mega Drive,
You
was
guys
it?
ready for this?
Sega. Yeah.
You had Empire Strikes Back, the game for the Atari 2600 in 1982.
Great game.
You had in 83 the Star Wars Jedi Arena for the Atari 2600.
Not so
you
great
had-
game. Not so
yeah.
great game.
Also in 83 you just had Star Wars. You had 83 Return of the Jedi. So you had a lot of the games that came out in the early 80s.
Yeah.
Mid 80s. Dude, that came out in the 90s.
That was way later.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
way later.
That
But
doesn't count for
you had Star Wars Droids, which was an action game for the Amstrad CPC Commodore 64
wow.
systems.
Wow.
You had, and that was in 87, and then 91 you had Star Wars for the NES.
which
Ooh.
I
And
do have very clear memories of playing.
it's a horrible game, and I wish
Yeah.
it would die in a fire.
The Super
It's
NES.
just- it's hard,
ones
it's
were
hard.
Way better. I really
Oh,
enjoyed the
this-
Super NES one.
The Super Star Wars games, on the other hand, that trilogy of games were great, except for Empire Strikes Back, which that game can die in a fire. But
yes.
so Super Star Wars came out in 1992, and then you had Super the Empire Strikes Back in June of 93, and then
I think that
get
was the best of
to-
the supers.
Well, this list is a bunch of bull crap because it's not including the PC games. Well,
Oh, typical.
Can we just skip ahead to Super Bombad Racing?
We
'Cause
cannot.
that's-
We cannot. We already did it. We did
I know.
we did a show about all the Star Wars games way back when, and
Oh yeah, that
we
was
did-
like my first or second time on.
I think that was your first or second time on. But on this show, folks, we're talking specifically about the X-Wing series, which is to me the pinnacle of Star Wars gaming. This and the Dark Forces Jedi Knight games. To me,
yep, 1995.
are the pinnacle of Star Wars gaming, in my opinion.
Undefeated.
Yeah, I agree. So the first one came out, X-Wing came out in February of 93. And I remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, but I remember there was a shit ton of hype for this game back in the day because there had already been 2 Wing Commanders by then. And so everyone was like, ooh, can they capture that magic?
Can they make because I was expecting Wing Commander but Star Wars.
Yeah. And it was less, but it was more because
it wasn't that. It was just different.
Yeah, because while you didn't have the cinematics of the Wing Commander game, the flying and the combat felt so much better than Wing Commander. Not that Wing Commander felt bad, but this just felt more simulation-y.
You know what I think?
Choppy.
You know what I think other than the rotoscope versus actual polygon stuff, because that was the big deal there.
That is a big deal. Yeah, sure.
God, I wish Dave was here for that, because the initial prototype that Chris Roberts walked into their office with was X-Wing, but it was X-Wing done like Wing Commander 1. And
God.
LucasArts was like, nah. And then he came out with Wing Commander with Origin, and then Lucas was like, oh shit, we need an X-Wing game. So that's how that came to be.
I think what really helped X-Wing, the series in general, is because the folks at Totally Games worked on it, and they had flight sim experience. They had World War II flight sim experience with
Right. I mean, X-Wing is basically secret weapons of the Luftwaffe in space.
Yeah, which if you guys haven't played Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe, amazing, absolutely amazing. Like, LucasArts had some really fantastic flight sims in the late 80s and early 90s. It was not only Secret Wars of the Luftwaffe, it was Battlehawks, 1942, and there was another one, The Finest Hour, right? That was the Battle of Britain one. So they did like three or four World War II flight sims, which were all great. Those and like the Aces games at the time were like, you couldn't beat them. If you recall the Aces of the Pacific and all those were
and I think much like Wing Commander and X-Wing, there was kind of like you were on either the Dynamics team or the LucasArts.
I remember
team
that. I remember that. I just like
flight sims.
I was like, I just want to play them all. I don't care. I just want to play them all. Oh, Black Yoshi on YouTube says the 90s are good for gaming because of LucasArts and Microprose and Nova Logic. We should do a flight sim episode where we just say how much we miss Microprose for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
that'd be a whole show right there. About
I need to do UMB on F-117A stealth.
Ooh.
Whatever.
Have you done F-19? I don't remember. Did you do
I
it?
haven't, so I'd probably do an F-19 and F-117.
Yeah. Oh, I love those games so much. But yeah, so I remember when X-Wing came out. Did any of you guys get it when it came out?
I did, yeah. So for me, there must have been so much hype around this game because I was really bad. I was always really bad at like knowing when things were coming, like for movies and like say like a Star Trek movie would come out. I remember this for like Star Trek 6. It was kind of like there was nothing, and then all of a sudden there was a preview for Star Trek 6, and I was like, oh, there's a Star Trek movie coming out. Okay. And it would like, and even for games, like I would not know that games were coming out except X-Wing. For some reason, I knew X-Wing was coming out. And I think I may have even said this on one of the previous times I was on. X-Wing was the first game that I was excited about before it came out. I clearly remember that.
If I recall correctly, they did a huge marketing blitz for that game back in the day, like huge. Like it wasn't just magazines. I think I remember a TV commercial or two. It was a massive marketing blitz for X-Wing, and I think it obviously worked. But I gotta tell you, I don't know if you guys remember, but X-Wing was a mean game It wasn't
Yeah,
as nice.
especially that medical frigate mission.
Oh, not only that, but like if you died, you died. You know, that was it. You're done. You got to restart.
Yeah, unless you hacked or whatever, you backed up your pilot file somewhere, and they fixed that in TIE Fighter. They let you do a manual backup.
Thank God.
Oh yeah, like if you died, it was like start over from mission 1 on it.
Yeah.
Or you lost, you could keep going, but I think
you lost your. If I recall, you lost your pilot.
You lost your rank.
I thought it was you lost your whole pilot. I don't.
Or maybe you did. I'm trying to remember now.
Oh well, no, but you could restore the pilot though. That was the deal.
But yeah, you'd have to start at the beginning.
Like he was dead. No, but you could like resurrect him somehow.
It was a weird like they would like revive the frozen corpse from space or whatever they like or maybe they did that in TIE Fighter, but it was like this. I remember like if you were to die, there was a shuttle that'd go back to the Star Destroyer in TIE Fighter specifically. I'm remembering this. And they would you'd see like the pilot body like floating in this like regenerator thing. And I think they had something similar for X-Wing as well.
Yeah, so I think, if I remember right, I think the death penalty was that because you would get points. And when you hit a certain number of points, you got promoted. And if you died, I think you could restore your pilot, but you lost all your points. So you'd be like a flight cadet again. And that was just infuriating.
Yeah, it was.
So you could never make general.
It's also, I don't know if this is true, but it's the first game I remember where you had the ring course for training. I don't remember a game before that had the ring course where it's such a trope now. Like every fucking game did it after that. So many fucking games have their own ring course, but like especially Independence War, that ring course, holy shit. But yeah, I don't remember a game before X-Wing that had the ring course. And that was kind of a revelation because I was like, ooh, I'm really getting a feel for the ship. You know, even before I jump in, this is great. Even before I start the campaign, this is great. Yeah, X-Wing had a lot to it, but it was still a mean game. You brought up the medical frigate mission, which I love how in later iterations of in the collector's edition, what was it, the 1998 collector's edition, they were like, we've made this mission easier. Please buy this. I think there was a bullet point on the back of the box that they made some missions easier. I think they specifically mentioned that one because.
And it's early on. I think it's
like the fourth mission. It's like the fourth.
Yeah, it's Tour 1 Mission 4.
Yeah, it's like so soon and like.
Are you guys still playing? Well, here's a mission for you.
Oh, you guys having fun? Well, we're gonna put a stop to that right now.
Because I think Tour 1 Mission 4 sucked, and I think Tour 1 Mission 8 sucked too, which is the one where you had to like disable. There was like 1 million transports, and you had to disable like 2 of them.
Right.
And you had to protect it, but you were in a Y-wing, and they kept dropping bombers on like either side, and
chasing space bombs.
You know what I did love about X-Wing is that it gave some props to the Y-wing. It like because remember in the Star Wars movie, the Y-wing is like it was like cannon fodder. Really, it was like
those are the guys that go first and get killed.
Yeah, exactly. But in X-Wing, you're like, wow, the Y-wing is actually a serious bad boy. Like it can take a pounding.
It's the workhorse. Yeah, it can take a beating.
And it's versatile. It's got the ion cannons, which is the first time we had those. You know, so yeah, I like how it gave some credence to the Y-wing. I never liked the A-wing. I never liked the A-wing. I will be honest.
I liked flying the A-wing. I hate the A-wing in TIE Fighter.
Oh God, yes, that made me hate it even more. Well, I never liked that there were only 2 little guns on the A-wing. Like, this is it? Really? This is all I get?
Well, you thought A-wings were a pain in the ass until you get late in the game and they put TIE Defenders on or TIE Advanced on.
TIE Advanced, that comes
from
one of the expansions. Yeah. I really did love how the expansions, which we can talk about in a minute, bridged the gap between Yavin and Hoth. That was really good stuff. And I liked how the last mission of the main campaign was the Death Star run, and it was so fucking hard. Which
makes sense. It should be hard.
It should be hard, and it was. I think I remember playing that like 8 times before I got through it.
I remember the last mission of the Super Star Wars game was also the trench run, and The boss was a gigantic Darth Vader TIE fighter.
What?
I love it.
Oh man,
Oh, that's nice. It was arcadey, dude. I mean, come on. It was supposed
That's-
to be
that's
like
so
silly. It
funny,
wasn't.
though.
Yeah.
that is so funny though. But I didn't even know an expansion was coming out until I saw it in the store. I don't even either they didn't really advertise it very well, or what. But Imperial Pursuit came out in like the summer, I think.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah,
And
around
I
there.
remember I got that pretty much as soon as it came out as well, because I think I only finished X-Wing like once, like played like from start to
Yeah,
finish. kinda
I've
played
only
it all the
finished
way
it once
through.
myself. And it's not that it's bad. It's that TIE Fighter's better, which we'll get to. But
Right.
but yeah, I finished X-Wing and then Imperial Pursuit, which was really great. I don't remember much about Imperial Pursuit. Because it added more missions in the TIE Advanced. And that was really it. Like it wasn't like a big revelation. You know, it didn't feel
Yeah, it was
like
just sort of like more.
it was just more good stuff. It was more goodness. It was more just you love X-Wing, here's more X-Wing. But then when they added the fucking B-Wing around the holidays, yeah. I love that B-Wing so much.
Oh, so Imperial Pursuit apparently, if I'm reading, I don't remember this, but apparently it introduced the interdictor cruiser to the game.
Oh, I don't remember that at all.
That's what
Oh,
Wikipedia
man.
says, and God
Oh,
knows.
wow. Yeah, I don't remember that at all.
Not
Yeah.
that it really made a difference, because it's not like you got hyperspace away anyways. You just failed the mission if you did it too early.
Yeah, pretty much. I barely remember interdictors in X-Wing, but I remember that B-Wing. Oh, yeah. I remember that B-Wing. That to me
Yes.
that was a revelation. Was the B-Wing? I every mission I could fly.
What, you mean getting to fly it?
Yeah. Because
It was fun, but it was like I felt that I could probably, other than the much higher torpedo load that it could carry, I was probably better off in an X-wing, really, for a lot
Yeah,
of that stuff.
I do enjoy myself a B-wing. There's some interesting things about the B-wing that, first of all, clearly the ships were named after their shape, so I'm really confused where the B-wing got its name.
yeah, I don't get that one either.
First of all,
It's probably more for bomber or something.
Bomber.
Second of all, the Star Wars people speak Basic, and their letters are different than English. So that's another weird thing I just wanted to point out.
Or
Anyway,
Oh.
yeah, that's
since
right.
they since they speak Basic, does each sentence start with a number?
This guy.
Go 220.
Exactly.
But the thing about the B-wing that just always bugged me was it was like this weird like they took like the best parts of an X-wing and the best parts of a Y-wing and kind of threw them together.
And gave
Because you
it
also
more
have
guns.
that cool like
And
and gave it an ion blaster of all things. So it's just like ion blaster OP. But I think in reality my true love is just for that classic X-wing though. Like I just give me the classic X-wing. There's just something about those new X-wings in the Force Awakens that just bug me.
meh. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's
They're just
like
X-wings.
it's like
There's
you can't come
nothing
up. You
new.
can't come up with a new design. I mean, after how many years?
I don't know. I think they were pretty slick, but whatever.
I mean they were slick looking, but there's just something raw about that. It's like why do people love like old classic Mustangs or old classic Corvettes or like some kind of hot rod? There's just something about the classics that you just can't replace. And even though like a new Mustang looks slick and all, I still don't want one.
Right. So then, what did you think about the X-wings in Rogue One?
You know.
But they were legit X-wings, though, right? I mean,
Right.
they didn't.
Yeah.
I was gonna make some kind of remark about being a hipster, but
I like X.
I like-
Like, oh, they're all like two.
so
I liked
X-wings
X-wings back when they were Z95s.
No,
There you go.
no one likes Z95s. No one
They're awful.
likes Z.
Uh,
they're the Hyundai Elantra of space
my
of Star Wars ships. No one
my
likes
my official My official answer to your question about the X-Wings in Rogue One is pandering, and I'm just going to leave it there.
Black
Anyway.
Black Yoshi on YouTube says regarding the B-wing on a sci-fi stack exchange, when viewed from the side, a B-wing looks like a lowercase b.
I mean,
Okay.
It's a bit of a stretch.
It's a bit of a stretch.
I'm not sure about it. Maybe when the wings are folded up. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, at a certain point, you're really gonna have you sort of have to stretch. I mean, a T-wing will look pretty boring.
Yeah.
Now
I love the B-wing because I'm just a big fan of heavy attack craft. And to me, the B-wing is the A-10 of Star Wars fighters. And
I'll give you that. I will definitely give you that.
And I loves me the A-10. I loves me some A-10. So to me, that's why I was so happy about that expansion, because you got to fly one. And it did not disappoint, unlike the missile boat in TIE Fighter, which that's all it did was disappoint.
See, if the B-wing was an A-10, it should have had a turbo laser on it.
Yes.
What were the starfighters? It wasn't Obi-Wan's starfighter, but in Episode 3, those things that they were flying, because it had a TIE Fighter cockpit, and then
those were Jedi starfighters.
Yeah, those were Jedi starfighters. Yes,
those were Jedi.
But that was like the new version, because Obi-Wan's was like a triangle at first.
Yep.
And then
they made they used imperial looking.
They were very much looking like small Star Destroyers, like in the beginning. I guess you saw them more in Episode 2 with Obi-Wan. In Episode 3, they kind of had a TIE Fighter flair to them. So
yeah, it was like it was evolving towards that kind of thing.
Which makes sense though, because they were built by the Republic, and I think at least I thought they were.
Yeah, that
which
makes sense.
Which the Republic then returns to being, the Empire, which along with that kind of comes that construction. So
yeah, so it's they're built by KDY, Quad Drive Yards. So that's
Quad Drive Yards. Yeah, whoever controls the Quad controls the universe is what it really is.
So
exactly.
So the X-wing was the T-65, right?
Yes.
And that was from Incom.
Yes. I believe so. Yes.
Okay. There's several versions of the T-65 though.
Yeah. So where was that made at? Because obviously the Empire didn't have control of the production facility that was making those things, or they wouldn't have done it.
the story there, which is not technically canon anymore, but until it gets overwritten, we can just assume that it is that so that the X-wing was originally being designed by the Incom Corporation for the Empire, but basically the senior management of Incom and their senior design team had rebel sympathies, so they defected with the plans. And apparently, unlike the Death Star plans, the Empire didn't have a backup of the X-wing plans, and so the rebellion has the only facilities and information with which to make X-wings.
Okay, so that B-wing that you just posted there, Jim,
yes.
that was a prototype that I don't think ever really came to fruition.
It's canon, bitch. It's canon.
Which is a shame. Which is a shame.
Yeah, that's the Rebels B-wing.
Yeah, because they had
the one and only.
They had miniature crack bar that invented this thing.
Yeah, and exactly. He made a little super laser.
Which is awesome. But yeah, we never saw that again. But it was awesome.
It was okay. It was okay.
I liked it. But yeah,
look, I think it's cool. I mean, Rebels is sort of mucking a little bit with the timeline that we're used to. Like A-wings are supposed to be super rare, and they're like everyone's got them, and there's a B-wing now, and that's supposed to be later. But it really doesn't matter. They've sort of come up with retconny explanations as to why.
Is it just me, or do the A-wings look different?
They do. They look stubbier. They look a little.
Yeah, they changed their aspect ratio or something.
They look less sleek. They look definitely like someone scrunched him in a little bit, like an accordion. They just went pushed him in.
Well, they tilted the wings. Yeah.
Those were always tilted in.
I believe
not that much.
Ooh, not like that.
But yeah, the A-wings do look a bit different. It is kind of weird. I agree. But yeah, so back in the day when they announced TIE Fighter, I don't think I was really excited. I'm like, why would I want to fly for the Empire? Empire sucks.
Yeah, same with me. I'm like, I liked the game. But I
Yeah,
liked
I like-
X-Wing, so I'm like, okay, I'll play TIE Fighter, but like TIE Fighters suck. Like, why would I want to fly a
Why-
shitty
yeah.
like tin can ship with no shields? Like, I'm gonna die all the time.
Exactly. And then that
Because if
demo
you can
came
fly
out.
one, then you're OP.
Right.
But then the demo came out, and the demo, which didn't even have the same missions as the final game, it had different missions, if you all recall. The demo was amazing. Like, I remember it came out in like January or February of '94, and like I replayed the frack out of that thing, like over and over, at least 3 times.
I just
I don't know
remember
if I
the
ever even
dream
played it.
that I could actually get it to run in 800 by 600. Oh my gosh.
Oh, that didn't run in 800. What are you talking about?
Yeah, or was it 640? It was 320 originally, and then it ran
Yeah, so
640.
640 is super VGA.
But that didn't that come with the CD-ROM version? That wasn't. I don't think that was in the original.
Right. Yeah, whenever you get the CD-ROM version.
Yeah.
It was,
yeah, so I think the difference.
because they also added the garage shading. and
Garage
stuff.
shading. Woo!
Garage.
garage
However you
shading.
pronounce
Yeah,
that.
so the disc version had the garage shading, right? If I remember right.
Yeah, but the CD version went up to 640 by 480, guys. Oh my god.
Yes, and whenever
High
I
def.
played it on, I think at the time I had a Pentium 200, probably.
Yeah. A Pentium 2,
And it was
the cartridge thing.
And it was, and I had this really weird, like, integrated, it was like the first generation of integrated sound on this one machine. And I don't know if it was like it was short or something, but when or it was on board or some weirdness, but when I would put the game, the same thing happened to me in Wing Commander 3 when you would switch it into SVGA, the sound would get all crackly because I think it was sharing, bus
Oh boy.
bandwidth or something with other things. So I put it into SVGA so the game would look good, but then it would be like the sound would be awful.
Man.
It's hilarious.
Well, yeah, I actually bought a Sound Blaster AW32 card mostly for TIE Fighter. That thing barely fit in my case.
You chose
Yeah,
you
that
chose
was a-
poorly. You should have bought that MIDI thing.
Oh, that was so expensive back in the day. Hundreds and
yeah.
hundreds of dollars. You could not. These were for the serious enthusiasts who had a lot of money to burn. These were like, I think the MT32 was $500 for a while, and I think
You were buying that if you were going to hook a keyboard up and do some stuff.
You weren't just gaming with this. You were a serious like MIDI composer. So yeah, but the AW32 was like kind of a middle ground because it had something close to what the Roland units, but it was a card.
It was like it had like onboard wavetable, didn't it?
Yeah, it had onboard all that, and TIE Fighter supported it natively, and it sounded amazing. But I remember being blown away from TIE Fighter when it first came out. Like, holy crap! Because like you're like,
Yeah, that was the point. That was the point that I bought a PC. It was like
really?
X-Wing was out.
Yeah.
I knew about X-Wing. I had struggled to play Wing Commander on my Amiga 500, and it was kind of a slideshow. And then whenever TIE Fighter came out, I was just like, okay, Resistance. Yeah, so I bought one.
This is time. It's time to do this. Good choice, because I mean, not only was 1994 an amazing year for gaming. I mean, holy shit.
It was a freaking expensive year for computers, I'll tell you.
Oh God, yeah, I got a.
That was a DX66, I think.
Yeah, 94 was like 486.
486 DX66. Yeah. And DX66 and like 4 megs of RAM. I think a mega RAM was like $100 a meg or something. So
yeah,
it was like a $1,400 box.
Yeah, I play in
TIE Fighter.
In 93, I got a machine mostly for Privateer, and that was about $2,000 for a 486 66. $2,000. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's craziness.
How times have changed. But yeah, I don't know about you guys, but TIE Fighter blew me the goddamn hell away by how good it was.
Yeah, like I said, it was super surprising. Like they found a way to make it compelling to fly for the Empire, to not make you feel like you're just being a jerk.
Yeah, they found a way to make the Empire sympathetic. Like you feel like, I'm fighting to give peace in the galaxy. Like, what the fuck's wrong with me? Wait a minute. Like,
Well, that's a thing too, though, is because a lot of the people that would have been, doing things then, because like, okay, the Emperor's evil as shit, Darth Vader's evil as shit, and probably the core people around him, right? But then all the other people had probably bought in on they drank the Kool-Aid, right? Like, no, we're gonna, because they just come out of this giant civil war where the galaxy was tearing itself apart, and then it's like, okay, you know what, we're gonna impose order and justice and law, and we're gonna like make all these people like toe the line, and wars end, and it's gonna be a managed society, and we're gonna fix all this crap. So I think maybe if you weren't like at the bottom of the totem pole, like an alien or whatever.
Like if
but
you hadn't been screwed by the Empire in some way, like it's the legitimate government. Like it's the government. That's all it is.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because it was like they weren't kicking in everybody's doors. It was like business as usual most of the places. Just if you happen to have have rebels hanging around, they'd probably kick your door in and shoot you.
But otherwise, hey, you go do your job. Look, Luke wanted to go to the Imperial Academy. Biggs went to the Imperial Academy. Like they all joined the fucking Air Force or Navy or whatever you want to call it.
What percentage of the population thought the rebels were like terrorist assholes?
Probably most of them.
And they ended up being like the winners at the end. So I wonder if most of the people were like, "Oh shit," like the government just fell, and the crazy, like it would be like, "Oh, ISIS just took over. Oh, good." Now what?
It's funny. I think I said that I was guesting on another show, and I said basically, the rebellion is basically ISIS, and everyone sort of stopped, and I'm like, but what? It's true. Like,
yeah.
Well, they had nobler intents, though.
Yes.
Yeah, like as I'm flying for the Empire, I'm like, look at this pitiful little band. What the fuck is wrong with me? Oh my god. Pathetic little band of rebels. Like,
it was like we were just getting the CPAN Civil War under control, and then these assholes show up and stir stuff up. Like,
and the thing is, a TIE Fighter was a lot bigger. It had even before the 2 expansions.
But I think were there 5 battles out of the box?
There were 5, and then ultimately I think there were 12 with the expansions, 12 or 13, I think.
I remember that because the first time playing through, again, because like I never knew anything, I was playing through and it was kind of like, I think I got to the end of like Battle 3 or Battle 4, and I'm like, okay, Battle 5. I'm like, what? And then it just like kept on going. It just
kept on going. It's a big game. And then they got Defenders of the Empire, which was the one expansion that was sold by itself. And that delved, if I recall, that delved even more into the Civil War with Zarin. Am I remembering that right? I think so.
Yeah. That's I think, is that where Thrawn came in, or did he come in the main game?
I think he came in the main game. I think I played the game through like multiple times, but I don't remember all these little finite details. But then
in a way, I found there's almost too many. Because there's almost too many battles because you kind of like get lost.
There's
it's also interesting that the plot was that a big chunk of Imperial forces was defecting out, and had apparently had a change of heart and decided like, wait, we were trying to be the good guys, and then we just found out that we're not the good guys. So now we're gonna, So that's. I don't know. I don't remember that part of the game too well. I remember the like flying with Vader and stuff, but I don't remember the politics of exactly what was going on. But
Zarin was trying to kill the Emperor, and there's an actual mission where you protect the Emperor, which is crazy.
Is that the one where you fly with Vader?
Yeah, that's the one where you fly with Vader, and then eventually, I think Defender of the Empire is hunting Zarin down. I think. Oh God, I can't remember all the details. And then there was Enemies of the Empire, which came with the CD-ROM. That's the only way you can get that one, was the CD-ROM. And let's talk about the CD-ROM now, which I think is probably one of the best of the entire series. One of the best entries of the entire series, I think, because it added 640 by 480. Oh my God. And it was funny because, like, I don't know about you, but I remember back in the day, oh my God. It's so clear. Everything's so sharp.
Right, because they upgraded it to the X-Wing versus TIE engine, didn't they?
No.
Oh, no, that's the collector's CD-ROM.
That's the collector's edition.
Right, which I have an issue with. So, yeah, we won't talk about that one yet.
Oh, yeah, Angel of Iron has an interesting question. When you started the game, did they automatically have a save file called Top Ace 10? I think they added that later. Like, I think when they first released the game, there were no other pilots.
In X-Wing, you got the Top Ace pilots when you bought the expansions.
Oh, okay. But I don't remember TIE Fighter.
And that would let you play any mission from the base game. TIE Fighter, I don't remember. But X-Wing, it was definitely something that came with the expansions.
Yeah. I don't think they just gave you that. At least not first.
I guess their assumption was that if you're buying the expansion, you probably beat the game, or you bought the game, so we'll let you mess around all you want.
Just use this guy to skip all that other shit and go right to the expansion stuff.
Skip Tour 1, Mission 4.
But
and that's sort of the thing. We didn't really mention that. So, like, I guess we were comparing it to Wing Commander a little bit off the bat. And one of the reasons that both of these games, X-Wing maybe more, well, no, TIE Fighter was pretty crushing in certain missions. But, you had to beat the mission. There was no losing track.
And
Correct.
that was infuriating. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was a big deviation from the Wing Commander formula, because Wing Commander had a branching campaign, so you could lose, and then there would be something else.
As a matter of fact, my very first playthrough of Wing Commander was all of 5 minutes because I died, and it went through a funeral ceremony, and then it was like this whole thing with like end credits at the end. It was the shortest playthrough of a game I've ever experienced. Great stuff there.
Well, I mean, it was possible to lose a mission, not
And
die, but just
still
not
keep going.
accomplish the goal. Right. And then it was just like, oh, well, we're going to do the rest of the game without that thing that you just lost.
Well, it's kind of like the thing now, like where you saw with Mass Effect. If you do certain things and you do all the things right, then you'll be able to get to a certain point, like in the mission. Or if you unlock all of the masks in Majora's Mask for Legend of Zelda, you'll get the Pharistes mask, but you don't have to have it in order to win. It just makes it easier.
Right.
Yeah, I do appreciate those kind of game elements in my games, and I wish I would see more of that.
Yeah, this was very much one track. Like you won or you were stuck.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, y'all, if y'all remember, I had been stuck on one TIE Fighter mission for about 2 years. Battle 9, Mission 3. Protect the TIE defenders while they're leaving the little factory. And I just beat it tonight. I am...
What? Tonight?
So excited. I was looking it up, and someone on a YouTube video they made of that mission gave a tip about... you start the mission with like 6 escort shuttles, send those motherfuckers home, and a bunch of assault gunboats show up. And they do way better. Oh my God. I like screamed at the top of my lungs when I won. Seriously. I'd been like stuck there. I think I made 10 attempts to pass that mission.
Yeah, and I know, and we've mentioned this before. Like they're space sims, but they're also sort of puzzle games. Yeah,
they're puzzles. There are certain ways to do things. Even though both of these games do a great job of letting you feel like you have some autonomy, and you do to a point, but there is a certain way you should do things, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Which can make it infuriating. But back in 1994, I didn't care. Like, I was screaming at my computer now because I'm like, I don't have any patience. But then it's like, I have so much time to play this game. I'll just lose over and over again. But the collector's edition was like, it was also the last game to use iMuse, which I'm still sad about.
Yeah, so I mean, the collector's edition or not the collector's, the CD-ROM edition, whichever one we're talking about.
It is the collector's edition. There's also the 95 collector's edition, which you were also
so that's what I mean.
There's two collector's editions.
The first collector's edition
it's confusing.
It took the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took the best parts of the disc version and just made everything a little bit better.
Yeah,
Made everything prettier.
Yeah, it was basically the definitive version of this. It's basically, I think, the definitive version of TIE Fighter.
Yeah. Can we get a new collector's edition, like in like Unreal or Unity? Or...
I
Was it on the I think it was in this group that someone posted that someone was working on it in Unity or something.
Yeah.
It's a fan
Took
project,
the original
but
game
yeah.
assets. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and the way they got around the stuff, you have to own the original game files, so it reads the original game files. It just puts it in a new engine, which is good enough for me.
It's like Scum VM basically.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I hope that does well, because I mean, I could play these games today, but I know there are people who like look at these graphics and go, "Oh no."
I did play these games today.
Right.
Yeah, so did I.
Oh, me too. Yeah. I think TIE Fighter still looks great, but I've got that nostalgia, so I'm fine with it. But yeah, TIE Fighter, I think ultimately has with the CD-ROM version, I think it's got over 100 missions.
Yeah, it's like there's so much content. It's ridiculous.
So much. It's probably one of the largest space sims in terms of content ever made, I think. I mean, Star Crusader has about that many missions, but you don't play them in a linear path. You have 8 or 9 branches you can go down. So that's a bit different. But yeah, I think in terms of content, it's probably the biggest of them all, I think. And eventually you get to what I think is one of the most useless. The most useless? Does that work? I guess it does. The most useless ship in any of the games, the missile boat, which I hated the missile boat.
The missile boat missions were never easy. I never even really liked the assault gunboat.
I like the assault gunboat.
I learned because of a few missions where I survived because I had the shields and versatility of assault gunboat, I learned to respect the assault gunboat. It really can take a licking and keep on ticking. Because one of my most amazing gaming experiences came out of TIE Fighter. Like it was the mission where you assault that Calamari cruiser that's being repaired. And
it's like Battle 1.
Yeah, and it shoves like a million A-wings at you, and you're in an assault gunboat.
Incoming missile. Incoming
exactly.
missile.
I got my shields and my guns taken out, and they were out for many minutes. So I just banked and weaved and changed my velocity for 8 or 10 minutes. And then I started picking off the A-wings one by one once my weapons came back. And somehow I won. And at that moment, I was like, you know what? The assault gunboat ain't so bad. I don't think I would have been able to survive otherwise.
Yeah, a lot of people hated on the missile boat, but I thought it was actually pretty cool.
You know what? Once I get to it again, I'm going to try and look at it from a different perspective. I'm going to try and come up with lower expectations. Because now that I've passed that mission, I'm going to start going through the campaign again.
Yeah, to kill slower stuff, it's trivial. Right, but whenever you're dealing with TIE Advanced and stuff,
God.
you have
worst.
got to have
or A-wings.
No, the secret is the tractor beam. You hit them with the tractor beam, they quit turning, and you just pop a missile right up.
But
them.
it also
you don't even have to wait for it to go red. Just get a yellow lock and let it go, and hold them in the beam, and they die.
I'll be honest, I'm terrible with the tractor beam. I am awful with it. I don't even know why. I'm just terrible with it. I can't keep still long enough to hold them. You know what I mean? I just can't do it.
Well,
yeah, and I find that's one thing. It's a little. The controls are a little twitchy in the game. I find so you really do have to be very precise.
Yeah, you really do. But the combat just feels so amazing. Once you're in a groove, it just feels so good. There really are very few space sims that come close to how the combat feels in TIE Fighter. I think it just nails it.
And it'd be interesting to know how is it because maybe by merit of the way Star Wars ships are designed that they could be pretty low poly, and is it just because of that they were able to get good performance out of things, and because this isn't a flight sim they don't have to deal with ground clutter, and so it's just there's not that much stuff to render all at once.
Yeah, I bet you all that helped. I mean, it's not. Yeah, I mean,
it's interesting that you bring all that up because I was thinking about it today. Looking at like modern space sim games, they do look really pretty, right? Like these graphics, they look amazing. But when I look at TIE Fighter, they are older graphics. However, there's something about I guess because of the nature of the graphics, the grittiness of the look that is appealing for some reason. It's that old, worn out kind of look, you know? Maybe it's just me.
No, I think the polygonal, at least on the DOS versions, I think the polygonal nature of the ships does help give them that look. You know, so I think you're onto something there. But then we had like a 3-year wait between TIE Fighter and the next game, which is X-Wing versus TIE Fighter in 1997.
Oh, because they had to revolutionize the world, right? It's time for the internet.
You know what I read? I read that they did, and once we talked to David again, he can. I think he also talked about this a little bit. But the development time of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter was really short. It was like
Yes.
14 or 18 months. It was like really, really short. And
Yeah, and I have to go back because I know I covered all this way back when I did these, and yeah, there was definitely some issues around that game.
Yeah, and I hate
Partially because they were talking. I think we were talking to Westman. He was saying at one point there was even talks of putting in an RTS element or even like a strategy game element into the engine. You remember that? He was talking about how
Yes.
they kept going to their guy and they're like, well, we could do this with that, and the guy was no, we got a timeline, we got to stick to this one thing, we're just gonna do it.
And before they were doing X-Wing Alliance, the game that they were working on was supposed to be Privateer in Star Wars with the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah,
which we still don't have, basically.
Right.
Yeah,
But you know what? Now this is my one big thing. Well, I have a couple little things, but I have one big thing with X-Wing Alliance, and that is that I skipped those damn family missions where you have to fly the cargo around.
goddamn right.
Because you know what? Once I got it, I just had no interest in it. Like everybody wanted that for years, and then it's just like, oh, well, this sucks.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. You were talking about X-Wing versus TIE Fighter.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't a big fan of multiplayer when it came out.
Same.
And so I hated it. I really hated it. I mean, I didn't know anyone to play with, which didn't help. And the internet connections were nowhere near as good back then. Like, I didn't even know if I was on DSL back then. I might have been still.
So the
on-
expansion, the expansion that came out for that. So without the expansion, it was just sort of an arena thing, right?
Yeah,
Well,
that's all.
really
any
That was
structure.
the intention.
Yeah, but they did have some small like mini campaigns, if I recall, like a couple of little like 3-4 missions strung together type thing, you know. But that wasn't TIE Fighter. That wasn't X-Wing. It didn't have that scope, you know.
Yeah, I didn't get a lot of mileage out of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. I bought the expansion. I played that campaign, but it was sort of like meh.
Yeah, no, the
And I
campaign.
think it was a game before its time. Like
It
it just,
really
Yes,
was.
it was. Yes.
Yeah, because after we started revisiting it and playing in multiplayer over Game Ranger and then Evolve, I realized how, like you said, ahead of its time it really was. I mean, the net code, once you get it working, I mean, you can do all this stuff co-op, and you know, you have all these different variety of missions, and it's really an impressive game.
Yeah, and I can't remember, and I'm sure Westman can speak to this if and when you guys have him on again. But I can't remember if in like the 1.0 release, if the netcode was all that great. I feel like they improved it, but I might be wrong.
Well,
I'm remembering.
there's a little setting that we've triggered. It's dependent upon if you're on internet or LAN or not, and we actually have to turn it off because even though we're playing on the internet, we actually have to turn the LAN setting on just to get it to function properly for us when we're in multiplayer. At least that's memory serves.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
back in the day of 33.6 dial-up,
Mhm.
it was just too slow. So, but that's what everybody had, right? It came out before cable was a thing, really, and that was much to its detriment, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Like,
and it
you know,
was
maybe
hard-
you can get away with playing Doom, but not
And do you guys
not
remember?
X-Wing versus
Do
TIE.
you guys remember how we found players back then? Was it? I mean, I know there was Callie around back in the day. I don't remember if I used Callie. Oh God, remember Callie? Oh God. But was there a
Yeah,
server
that's another deal. They should have
Oh,
had.
there was like some
would have had
Microsoft
something.
service that it
or
used, I
M
think.
Player or some shit?
Yes,
like
I think
that?
it was that.
Yeah, something like that. And it didn't really work that great. And I just remember playing with a bunch of randos, and I'm like, I don't know you people, I don't care, And it just, and they changed the engine so speed mattered. Remember that? Like the faster you went, the slower you turned. It's like, wait a minute, I'm in space.
Physics in Star Wars. What are you doing?
Wait a minute, come on. This isn't right. So yeah, I shelved that for years. I never even played the expansion. Never even touched it because I'm like, why? Why do I care? But it's because of these guys, mainly Jim, I think, that got me back into it, if I recall correctly. And yeah, it's like probably my second favorite of the series now, honestly, because it's just so great. I mean, we haven't. I think the most people we've got on is 5 or 6. Does that sound right to you guys? Like 5 or 6 people?
I think
Yeah,
6 is the max we had. Yeah.
But you can get up to 8 people with that shit. And that's amazing for a 1997 game. That's crazy.
No, it's insane. And yeah, like I'm just poking through the Wikipedia here, and there's an entry in here and it is actually corroborated. There's a reference. It said basically the problem with the netcode was that, unlike a game like Doom or whatever, where you only really care where someone is if they're in front of your face, you need to know, like the game client needs to know where everyone is because you're in the same arena, basically, right? It's open.
Exactly. And there's tons of objects flying around, not just you and the other players, but all this shit they're shooting at. So yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that was an easy thing to pull back in 1997, but they did it. It was just too early. It was just way too early.
Yeah, that and if there's no mission structure and it's just an arena thing, as we found out in times when we just played the arena mode, is just kind of like people just charge at each other and somebody dies. It's not that great. You need tasks to do, and then it's good.
Exactly. That's why I don't like games that are just arenas where you're just shooting each other, or you're just like, take over that thing. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, deathmatch and all this stuff. It doesn't really it's the same reason. Like I should be totally into, MechWarrior Online, and I'm not, because it's just like meh.
Exactly.
Shoot things like.
But apparently,
we got something for you.
That's why I don't care about that new Heavy Gear game coming out, because that's all it is. It's
they said that it's gonna get a single player campaign, but that's gonna be well after release, and it's like.
No, then I'll buy it well after release.
It won't be as good as Heavy Gear 2. No question. I don't think it will be anyway. But yeah, once they added the Balance of Power campaigns, those were good campampaigins. Well, as far as
I remember enjoying it. I was just sort of fed up with the game by the time that happened.
Yeah, as far as we got anyway. Because we didn't finish them. Because fuck.
Yeah, we got to this one rebel mission. We blew through the Imperial stuff. That was not bad. That was highly enjoyable. And then we got to the rebel stuff. And there's one mission where it's like you have to defend an asteroid while the rebels.
So many fracking torpedoes. Jesus.
I think I watched you guys try and play through that once, and I was like, wow.
That's what I was begging Westman to get his joystick out and come in here and just deal with his own shit. Because
we'll have to arrange
how did you do this to us?
We'll have to arrange like a Saturday or Sunday morning where we can get him on here and just be like, you are sitting in the cockpit with us, sir, and you are helping us finish this shit.
Yeah, he's like, I don't have my joystick. It's like, check your front porch.
UPS went to you right now.
We will mail it. Give us your address. We will pit.
The Amazon drone will be landing soon.
We will all pitch in.
He'll turn on dev mode or something, and it'll just one shot kill.
No, you know what the secret is.
I don't think there is a cheat mode in this game.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
No, the cheat mode is that you do the mission single player, because then you can control all your wingmen and you tell them what to go attack, and they all in unison swarm on that thing and kill it. But whenever we're playing as humans, then we tend to not do things as efficiently.
I'm the hero. No, I'm the hero.
Well, it's like one guy, which would be the player, has to sit there and deal with those incoming torpedoes. Meanwhile, you have to be murder and all that other stuff.
Right.
So you just find the target. I remember doing it in single player, and it wasn't that hard. So you find what needs to die, and then Shift A, using your target. Okay, and then click back to the the gunboat that will surely be in front of you by now. Kill his torpedoes, kill him, and then hunt the radar again. Okay, that thing next. Shift A, and you're through it. But trying to do it in multiplayer is just ripping hard.
Yeah. I bet it's like a dynamic difficulty where we add more players, it gets harder. Fucking game. I love it though. I love it. But yeah, that game is just so good. And then we come to the final game in the series, 1999.
Perhaps the most controversial.
Yeah, I think this is. I think this is the one with the most
Opinions.
the most feelings and opinions, yes, surrounding it. X-Wing Alliance from 1999. This is probably also one of the last, for a while anyway, classic era games. Like after this, it was mostly prequel era games, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, and none of them were that great.
Yeah, well, no, Racer was great. Racer was
good. Yeah,
Racer was great, but that's. I mean, there was. And
but
I guess
they all became very arcadey at that point.
I guess Empire at War, but that was 2006. That was years and years and years after.
Right.
But yeah, X-Wing Alliance. Well, Hunter, that was your first X-Wing game.
It was. As Alex pointed out in the chat way early on, he was talking about the first Star Wars game that he remembers playing was the Super Star Wars for the NES and Super NES, excuse me. That was my first entry into playing Star Wars games was the Super Star Wars on the NES, or Super NES back in the day. And then I played Dark Forces and a bunch of other stuff. And then like my first entry actually into space sim games in general was actually X-Wing Alliance. I didn't have the joy and pleasure of owning a joystick before then, or even was aware. I was, we didn't really have a nice family computer like that growing up, so it was mostly console stuff. But after that, you better believe I had a computer.
So you're kind of in the post joystick era.
Right, I guess part of it is the rose-tinted glasses of X-Wing Alliance for me. Fond memories of just like this, because I grew up in the wake of the original Star Wars, right? Like Return of the Jedi came out 3 years before I was born, which is kind of weird now when I look at it. Like my niece was born after Episode 1, but most of my nieces and nephews were born after like the new wave of Star Wars. So I feel old at this point. And so like for you guys, you're like, wow, we've got this young guy on the show. But yeah, no, like, so Jedi came out 3 years before I was born. So I grew up so for me, the EU holds a huge presence for me because I grew up on all things post Jedi. I was all about the Star Wars Action Fleet by Micro Machines toys. I was all about, all kinds of, all the video games that came out, the Shadows of the Empire, the Super Star Wars. And then by the time I kind of evolved with that. And by the time I hit a certain point where I was getting into more PC stuff, I hit that X-Wing Alliance game, and I was like, "Wow, this is really cool. It's a completely other story from that universe." So I was really wrapped up inside the whole idea of the expanded universe and just playing other stories out from that universe. So for me, being a Ute and playing as a Ute essentially was kind of like a one-to-one for me. Now, I mean, as I'm older, I kind of get why people really didn't like that kind of just like, mentality. It's the whole like, oh God, Episode 1, Anakin Skywalker kind of crap. Like I get it's hard to relate to that. Like how do you relate to a little kid when you're not a little kid?
Right.
And so part of me recognizes that issue, But when I went back not too long ago and was looking at it, the first 7 missions are all about learning how to play the game, essentially. So it's all about the family business. You're learning how to like use the controls, which really there was tutorial stuff for the other X-Wing games, but there's really no like story-driven usage on how to do things, right?
No,
There's no like
you do the stupid training course.
right, like, well, I mean, so really, the first 7 missions are like your training courses on how to play this game because it takes the full keyboard and joystick to play it. Which, for someone like me at the time, that was perfect. But once you get past that, you have a whole like 46 other like missions you're playing, 11 of which are family missions. So in reality, if you do the math, you're playing 35 missions that aren't the family mission stuff, which is still a lot of missions. It's not the 100 and something that you get like in the earlier games that, whatever, but you get to the point with the Battle of Endor and you actually do the Death Star tunnel run.
Mm-hmm.
And that mission is so jarring, like trying to fly through that at like fast speeds and there's these crazy turns.
Hey, Hunter, you can shoot the pipe.
You can what?
You can shoot the pipes.
I know you can, but still, you have hard turns that you got to take.
I know, but remember how many times I failed on that thing?
I remember.
And it was like, oh my god, I can shoot the pipes!
Like, what a fucking revelation! Sorry, F-bomb, but still. Yeah, no, I have a fondness for this, kind of like you guys have a fondness for the earlier series because of when it came out and the time frame for you guys, but I still like the concept of something else in the Star Wars universe that is just so far removed. Even though it starts out kiddie, like you look at the Clone Wars and Rebels, it's really hard to like just pick up Clone Wars and Rebels from season 2 without really that context of what's going on. I mean, you can read the spark notes of it, but it's not the same, right?
I don't know. I kind of like the idea that there was like a side story thing going on where it was like, okay, well, these are like business people, right? And then they ran afoul with some smugglers and whatever, and they got screwed. And then they just happened to like run into the Rebel Alliance, and then it was just a fit, because at that point you're not the farm boy that joins them, but you're like the kid who, much like Luke, has just lost everything, right? And it's like, well, let's just join up with the Rebels.
So your father gets spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't like played this, but it's been out for a long time. So like it starts out where you're part of the family business. Your father kind of has an affinity for the Alliance. Your sister has a boyfriend who is in the Alliance as a fighter pilot, and you also have, I guess it's your cousin. I believe there's another part of the family that's like there too. I want to say he's a cousin, or he could be an older brother, one of the two. And so as you're going through things, the Empire figures out that your dad delivered supplies to the rebels on Hoth, and your father gets killed during some like bad dealings with like a rival company, and essentially you have to flee because you have nothing left. It's just like you and your sister and your brother. And so like you go and join up with the rebellion for a little while, and then that's where you start training to be a fighter pilot. And so it starts out with like deep space strike evaluation where you like do the training in the X-wing.
It was Y-wing first, I think.
Oh no, you're right. It was Y-wing.
X-wing.
Right, because you had to do the bombing run. Yeah, because you had to do that bombing run thing, like on the space station or whatever. But as you went on, some of those missions got really like crazy, where you had to go and like take out a dreadnought that was docked up at like an Imperial like station. And then there was the one. It happened to be a family mission, but it was a crazy family mission in which you had to go save your sister, and you had to like fly through an asteroid field past a Super Star Destroyer, like right next to it, and go dock at a space station, collect your sister, and get the hell out of there without getting blown up. That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like I think I even mentioned this other times we've been on. Like I haven't played this game since it first came out. I remember enjoying it a lot, and I remember that it sort of gave me the thing that I found was lacking in the first two games, which was a narrative. Like TIE Fighter got way better. TIE Fighter told a good story, but it was like in kind of stops and starts. Like you'd get cutscenes every now and then.
Right.
And what I really wanted was that sort of like Wing Commander 2, like between every mission stuff is happening kind of storytelling.
Yes. That's true.
You know what else Wing Commander didn't have? An obnoxious droid. It was like, hey, Ace.
I mean, really, Star Wars is about obnoxious droids, though, dude.
Exactly.
But that
Star
droid,
Wars.
We've had 3PO for how many fracking movies now?
Every
I know,
single
but-
one.
every
Rogue One.
single one.
Yeah, but I would take Tudyk as my
You promised me
co-pilot, though, whatever that
flesh.
thing was. God, that was
Yeah,
funny.
yeah. If you guys haven't seen it, go look up Jedi Party on
Okay.
YouTube. You will not be disappointed.
3PO is the best thing
Well,
about that.
well, yeah, his new name is Creepio, and like Anakin turns him on for the first time. He's like, "Ah, why have you awakened me? You promised me flesh." With every single step is another agonizing pain.
Guys,
Love
really, it's the best. Let me find it.
Oh, hey, Fatu. I bet you've been wondering what I've been doing for the past 5 years. Don't worry, I haven't been sitting on my hands. It's best I show you first. Come this way. He takes them into that scene and Attack. Oh, Jesus, he's playing it. He takes them to that scene in Attack of the Clones where it's like the droid factory on Geonosis or whatever, and it's like a redubbed, and he's like, the universe's greatest invention, the singularity machine. The perfect blending of flesh and machine.
That
You
whole
will
thing
not
is
be-
jacked up, man.
You
I
will
po-
not be disappointed.
I posted it in the stream chat for y'all, but yeah, my God, I was.
There's a total
Oh my
of
God.
5 episodes so far.
Oh my
This
God,
released like several years ago.
I've only watched the first one, and I need to watch the rest, and it's just, oh my God,
I just
Oh.
like the one at the beginning with the Emperor, and he's like, yes, and hey, what's that sheen on that table? That's ridiculous. Send a bottle of whatever you're using back with Maul.
So I guess the Jedi
Is
paid
it-
their bill and left quietly, huh?
It's like, is that Murphy's oil soap? That is ridiculous.
Oh God, yeah, you guys. Oh my God, so funny. It makes 3PO so much better.
Yes, it turns 3PO into a psychotic, like, gonna take over the universe robot.
The voice they got for him is perfect.
So that kind of brings
Yeah.
up something that I have always wished is
Yeah.
I would like a story about IG-88 and how the hell that droid decided it was going to be a bounty hunter.
Well,
Nobody owns it.
funny you should say that because there is a backstory to that.
There is, yes.
Well, it's legends, but there is
Yeah,
a
it's not-
backstory to it.
Do tell.
Yeah, is that in Tales from the Tales of the Bounty Hunters?
I believe it's in Tales of the Bounty Hunters. He was essentially he was a line of machines, and like TLDR, he eventually like killed his master, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
And,
he was like the smartest one. Something happened to him, and he like became self-aware.
He was like a Johnny Brian. Jesus.
I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from.
Johnny
He was
Five.
like a Johnny Five of robots for Star Wars. Like he
but like
gained
the
like
psycho murderer Johnny Five.
right. He gained like full on sentience and like knew what he was doing.
Well, it was like after the Clone Wars, then combat robots were banned, right? Like galaxy-wide, wasn't that the deal?
Well, not in IG-88's case because you can see him on the Star Destroyer in Empire.
Well, yeah, but he wasn't exactly an upstanding citizen either. So, you know. But
Well, there was like a whole
understand
beef between IG-88 and Boba Fett actually. Like there's this whole thing where at one point I think was IG-88 actually jacked Boba Fett up pretty hardcore as Boba Fett was on his way to deliver the carbonated
Yeah,
solo
yeah.
So there was like this huge fight between the two of them in like space battle that took place.
I remember
But
one
eventually,
IG-88 was a boss fight.
yeah, it was Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah.
And in Shadows of the Empire, you defeat him, which leads you to where Boba Fett is, and then you go fight Boba Fett. After Boba Fett has already delivered Jabba or Han Solo, though.
Yes, playing as Dash Rendar, the crappier Han Solo.
Yes, but in a galaxy far, far away, you have to have your tropes, and there's more than one smuggler that is similar to Han Solo. I mean, you look at the Old Republic. The Old Republic smuggler class is like straight up based off of Han Solo too. So.
It's almost like people that were writing Star Wars fiction had the RPG, and it was just like, all right, what class is this character? Oh, smuggler.
Done.
Yeah. Because it's like people were just scared to deviate from the very few archetypes that were there. It's like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about that at one point where it was just like A New Hope starts out like an RPG, like a.
Oh yeah, they meet in a bar. I was like, what was it, Joe that came up with it? Who was it that dropped that knowledge on us? And we were like, oh shit, it happened on the show.
It was the board game guy that we had on here who was making.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh my god.
That was so funny. It was Ken Burnside, and he's like, "Well, yeah, it's just like an RPG." It was like, well, a thief and a wizard, and a kid meet in a bar,
and a bard. The kid's the bard. Yeah.
Oh my god, I forgot.
Well, I mean, Star Wars is a very classic. It's the classic hero's journey. It's a very classic story, and I think that's why it appeals to everyone. And it's a quest. I mean, that's the whole thing.
Well, is that why the new movies don't make it with people? Is because it lacks that particular like hero's quest arc.
I think as fun as Star Wars is in these new movies, I just think they've kind of diverged from that just to keep the some kind of lore going. I think really Star Wars has diverged from its original like.
Well, it's like they take it too serious, but they don't take it serious enough at the same time.
Right, because like you look at pure 1977 Star Wars in and of itself is almost a perfect movie. Same thing with, I mean, it's got its flaws like any film does, but you look at, they didn't really intend to honestly make a sequel to that. Like that, it was an idea, but it wasn't like they, until it was successful, they're like, oh crap, now we definitely need to run with this.
Yeah. So Joe,
and then it got better before it got worse.
So Joe, how old are you?
I am 35.
Okay. Well, maybe you're too young for this then. So, but me being the old man of the show, I was 7 in 77 when this thing came out, right? And so sequels to movies were freaking unheard of. That just didn't happen, right? It was super rare.
Never.
And so for them, like 4 years was it later?
3.
5 years later? 3?
Yeah.
Okay. To just suddenly be like, and coming this summer,
well,
and then roll the Star Wars, dun 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 dun, on the screen, and my little mind just fucking exploded. It was like, what? Yeah. And but I remember my mom for my because it was what, 82?
It was 80.
It came out? 80. Okay.
Yeah, 77, 80,
yeah,
83.
So it was my 10th birthday then that I was in the theater to see Empire, and oh my god. It's just like, holy crap, can't even believe I'm sitting here seeing this.
Yeah, and that whole thing with Darth Vader where he says, I am your father, wasn't even originally going to happen.
Really? Was that like some writers jumped in and like...
I don't remember the story exactly why it got changed. I just remember that the only people that knew were Mark Hamill and George. And not even Harrison knew. And there's a thing where Harrison he's like, how did you know? And he's like, yeah, I knew the whole time. And he's like, you didn't even tell me? He's like, I couldn't. Just like.
Whoa.
Silence.
Yeah, everything went silent.
Yeah, it's just like remembering just what that was like, right? Like the shock that, oh my God, there's going to be another Star Wars, because I had 3 years of, it was the action figures. Like action figures weren't even a thing, right? Like a GI Joe was like a, I don't know what remember the Star Wars like 12-inch figures or whatever those things were.
Oh,
That was
yeah.
like, that was a GI Joe, right? It was like a doll and you put clothes on it and stuff. And the army guys, I just totally wasn't into that. But oh my God, Star Wars toys. So my grandma sent off,
Spaceship.
you had to send off box tops from like Surreal or some shit to somewhere, and then Kenner would send you back like a voucher, like, okay, now you're in line, you're gonna get these action figures when they come out. And she used to just send off for stuff, right? Like she had a cookie jar that was the Pillsbury Doughboy and stuff, and she was just a collector of, hey, I put in the work, I sent these labels and I got the thing, right? I don't even know if companies do that shit anymore. But yeah, so she had like knickknacks from her effort in doing that, and the Star Wars figures were one of those, right? So she gives them to me, and it was just like, oh my God, this is awesome, And then I went down to we had like a 5 and dime store, and they had an X-wing, and it was like, holy crap, they made, there's like the X-wing is here for this, and yeah. But even before the movie came out, there was an issue of Newsweek that came out, and because I was like way into robots and stuff as a kid, right? And grandma's showing me this Newsweek. She's like, hey, there's this new movie coming out, in a couple months. It's got robots in it. Here, check this out. You're gonna love this. And I look at the robots, and it was the lineup outside the Jawa Sandcrawler, and I'm like, well, this thing looks like a lump, and that's like half a dome. That thing looks like a trash can. I'm like, there's nothing here that looks like a cool robot at all.
Yeah. The Gonk droid is
this movie's
a walking trash can.
Yeah, I'm just like, this movie's gonna suck. This is stupid.
Gomp.
But
Gomp.
okay, I was so wrong.
Gomp. I love Gomp. I want to know more about Gomp.
His first name's Forrest.
Gomp. 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 Gomp.
My name's Gonk, Forrest Gonk. Awesome.
So after Alliance, we had a few more Star Wars fightery games, if I recall.
Jedi Starfighter, the
Yes.
best.
Oh, Jesus.
You know what? It's not that
I'm
bad.
not even sure if I even played.
It's
Jedi
not that
Starfighter.
bad. It's not that bad. It's better than
I
Starfighter.
preferred
It's better than Starfighter.
I preferred the Rogue Squadron series after the X-Wing series.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Are we? I've only played the GameCube ones so far, but those are.
Well,
Damn.
the 64/PC Rogue Squadron, the first one, was one of those games where they played heavily, like the X-Wing series, played heavy into the hands of the EU. You had like the droid starfighters that were in there that were from the expanded universe. You had the World Devastators that were definitely from the expanded universe. Dark Empire. You had a few other like little tidbits here and there from that too. I think Mara Jade? No, there was some other TIE fighter pilot from the Empire that defected in Rogue Squadron as well.
Oh yeah, speaking of TIE fighter pilots that defect, wasn't that the deal with Han Solo?
Yeah.
Wasn't he like a TIE fighter pilot?
He was an Imperial officer. I think he might have been a TIE fighter pilot, Joe.
Yeah, I think so. So if you go check out the Star Wars stacks, the last EU stuff that we have sort of been covering was the Han Solo trilogy by A.C. Crispin, which sort of starts off as Han as a little kid and goes up right basically until the third book, spoiler, ends with, and he sees this old man and a kid walking into the bar kind of thing.
That was the Han Solo trilogy, right?
Yeah. It's quite
God,
good.
that's
like
a great. That is a great
Indiana
trilogy.
Jones.
That one is great.
Kind of.
I do remember reading that one. That one was great.
And the author she really gets his voice, like it's him. Like you really, when you read it, you can picture him.
Yeah, because it starts out with him on a ship, where there's like a Wookiee chef or something like that.
Yeah, and she like kind of protects him because this ship is owned by this like kind of really shady guy that like takes street kids off the street and like teaches them to be pickpockets and all this stuff. So yeah, he didn't have a great childhood, and yeah, this Wookiee cook basically raises him. So that's where he learns how to speak or understand Wookiee and his affection for Wookiees, which later, once he gets into the Imperial Academy, graduates and becomes a junior officer, gets him into trouble because he sees a Wookiee slave being basically, whipped and beaten by this Imperial, and he saves him and gets kicked out.
Yeah, and that's where Chewbacca owes him the life debt.
Yep. Exactly that. And it's kind of funny because like he gets kicked out of the Imperial Navy, which was like his lifelong dream to get into. So he goes into this like depression, and he just like gets all grubby and drinks and everything. And Chewie basically just keeps following him around, and he's like, "Get the hell out of here!" And Chewie's like, "Nope, nope, nope." And finally, he saves him from a bar fight, and he says, "No, maybe you're useful to have around." And then they become buddies.
It's like, what's your skill set? Drinking and shooting people and being a bastard. Oh, let's be smugglers.
Getting back to games, I'm going to admit I've never played Rogue Squadron.
I think I played the first one and then maybe the second one, but I definitely played the first one, but I don't have tons of memories of them.
Well, when I got
and I played them and enjoyed them, but I sort of dismissed them because at first I thought they were sequels to Rebel Assault.
No.
So I was immediately turned off.
No.
Yeah,
they're not. They're totally
not.
I didn't play Rebel Assault either.
Still do not care for Rogue Squadron on PC. Just not my thing. But the GameCube one was amazingly great. Which one was it? It was because it's like Dark Forces, not Dark Forces. What's the one with the Outrider? It was on N64, right? It was
Shadows of the Empire.
Yeah, Shadows of the Empire. What came before that? That was a Rogue Squadron game, wasn't it? Rogue Squadron 3D.
It was
Rogue Squadron came out. Yeah, Shadows of the Empire was first to come out on the N64, and then Rogue Squadron came out later. And they're two different games. But there's also the forgettable Battle for Naboo game that came out that was an offshoot in that series. It was the same engine, Factor 5, same types of missions, but it was an episode 1 style game called Battle for Naboo.
Cannot remember that at all.
Remember that one.
Well, anyway, the only thing that I remember about the Rogue Squadron thing was like fighting TIE bombers in canyons and stuff, right? Because it was, and the draw distance was like about 5 feet.
Right.
So you had that fog in front of you. Yeah. So like, try not to hit these canyon walls that you don't see till the last second.
Well, on the 64 though, that actually worked in your favor though, because it was just the style of like the game was built almost like to work as work for you that way. Words, what are they? I can't say them. But the thing about Rogue Squadron that was always interesting to me is the level of progression with like the vehicle unlocks, right? So you had each mission that you could complete in 4 different ways. You can just complete it, right, and just get the basics done and get like a bronze medal, or you could get the silver medal or the gold medal, right? And each time you did that, if you unlocked all the missions in a certain way, you could go back and play them again with the different ships. One of the things that I absolutely loved was as you got through it, you were able to unlock some secret ships that you could use for different missions. Like there was actually a TIE Interceptor that you could fly. There was a cheat code that turned the V-Wing, which was a new ship for the Rebels, into a Cadillac. So you could literally fly a Cadillac around. Not even kidding. And so I used to go back and play the very first mission where you're on Tatooine and kill all but one of the bombers, and then fly real low like I'm driving through the streets of Mos Eisley in a Cadillac.
Nice.
I'm a dork. But anyway.
Yeah, I never played the Rebel Assault games at all. Going back to that, they look.
Don't worry.
They look terrible.
Yeah.
They look.
If you didn't play them, if you played them on a PC, I think you were doing it wrong. They were kind of more because of the rail shootiness of them and the way they kind of played, were just definitely more geared towards like an arcade / console mix. So,
but I think it only ever came out for PC.
No,
Rebel
it came
Assault?
out. No, I'm looking at it right now. It came out for the Sega CD.
Oh
And
yeah, right.
It
okay.
also came out for the Mac, and here we go, the 3DO. Oh my God, the 3DO! Remember the 3DO?
Is the Philips CDI on there too?
It is not. It is not on here. But yeah, I got the second and third Rogue Squadron games for the GameCube, and they're shockingly good. Like, I dismissed them years ago, like, stupid console games. No, they're about as close as you can get to X-Wing on a console.
Really?
Yeah, they're pretty close, and you can even. I know Brian doesn't like the cockpit stuff, but you can even go into cockpit mode.
No, I do like
Yeah,
the
the
cockpit
thing-
stuff. I do like the
The
cockpit
thing
stuff.
that
I'm
was
just terrible at it. I'm terrible.
the thing that was
at it.
super important in playing those games is if you hit, I think it was the Z button, it pulled up your targeting computer, and then it would highlight all the TIE fighters in yellow, because otherwise you could not see those things because it was black on a black screen of space, right? And so you use the targeting computer a lot.
I believe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that game had some powerful B-wing missions in it. Come to think.
To the person in the Discord chat, no, Rebel Assault wasn't on the PlayStation, but Rebel Assault 2 was on the PlayStation.
And that also didn't look very good.
I liked it better.
It was definitely better.
It was better than the first one, but it was still like. So
Didn't
so
they-
my
didn't they
Rebel
introduce-
Assault video is sort of my equivalent to Brian's Privateer 2 video.
Oh, did you
Like,
get drunk? Did you get drunk and black out like I did?
No, but I thought I was not having fun.
But you wanted to. You really wanted to. Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Didn't Rebel Assault 2 introduce the cloaky TIE fighters into the?
Yes.
No,
I
that
think
was
No, it
no,
did.
that was.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia.
What was the live
intro.
action thing?
That's this.
That's what
That's
Rebel
Rebel
Assault
Assault.
2 is.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was it. It was the cloak fighter.
the
or whatever they
V-38
called it.
Phantom, according to Wikipedia.
Oof,
Yeah,
about
that's pretty
that.
bad. But but it looks like it's Factor 5 again, who made the Rogue Squadron games as well, didn't they?
Yeah, but you have to look at the difference in the time frame of when those games came out.
Is it? No, the first one's not. The first one is just straight up LucasArts, but the second one might be.
Yeah, the second one was definitely Factor 5 and LucasArts. The first one, I don't.
Because the first one came out around the same time as X-Wing did.
Yeah,
It doesn't look like they worked on the first one.
yeah. See, this is what I'm saying. What was it? 1993. When did Rebel Assault come out? 93?
I think around yeah,
93.
same year.
Yeah.
When did the
93.
second one come out?
96.
Oh wow! So
And-
2
and
years
they-
later is when Rogue Squadron came out on the 64 and the PC.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking at Rogue 5's YouTube. Not YouTube, Wikipedia page right now. Yeah.
I really did enjoy Rogue
I-
Squadron a lot.
I eventually
Fun
need to,
memories.
I eventually need to do a video of those so y'all can see how terrible I am. I mean, I can't get past the first mission. The first mission in Rogue Squadron 2, Rebel Leader, I think it's called, is the TIE Fighter run. And I can't pass it. I've tried like 3 times. I just can't do it. I think it's also because I'm not used to the GameCube controller.
That is a
Um,
janky ass controller.
It is janky. I mean, when I got the Wii, I got a bunch of GameCube games with it, so I bought some GameCube controllers because they were so cheap. And I'm like, oh, I should get these Rogue Squadron games, and wow, am I terrible. Like, terrible bad.
Yeah, but when you get familiar with that GameCube controller, it's the best controller.
What?
You
No,
get a
it
wave
isn't.
bird in your hand, you'll never want anything else.
Come on.
They
Seriously?
are pretty solid controllers.
Now that N64 controller though,
Oh, God, yeah, I
what
remember
the
that.
hell were
one's
they
bad.
thinking?
Yeah, that one's weird and bad.
It's
I
like
remember
I'm
that thing.
Batman.
So,
Well, I mean, the games were designed for it though. You try to play a modern game with the N64 controller, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
No,
Literally.
you try to play an N64
So-
game with a normal controller too, and it's kind of
let's wrap up with,
Well-
sorry, good.
No, let's wrap up. We'll talk after.
Yeah, let's wrap up with just talk of the future. Do we think there's going to be anything like this in the future?
Maybe, and my hope is because we have all of the Battlefront space stuff.
Right. So I'm
yes.
actually watching right now. I'm watching this video of the Rogue One X-wing VR thing.
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask you had you seen it, because that's pretty amazing. That's like a
Yeah,
Disney ride.
It
I,
looks
although I don't think it has any replayability because it's just a static thing.
Yeah. So
It looks like
what
a rail
I
shooter.
would love.
Is it a rail? It's a
Yeah,
rail
I mean,
shooter.
what I would love is this, but like, you know, as a space sim, like as
well. If you go and look at somebody who has a video on YouTube of the Battle of Scarif DLC for Battlefront, they've got it like in 4K, 60 frames a second, and it looks just balls to the wall amazing. Now, if they can make a X-Wing style game look like that, then I'm okay with it. But I have a hard time feeling that they're going to bring out a space sim like Disney, mainly because it just doesn't seem like it feels like they're trying to go for the easier path.
yeah,
rather than trying to-
there's not enough appeal.
Do you remember
I mean,
that X
even though
versus TIE Fighter game that got shit canned while it was in alpha like 2 years ago?
It was like
No.
6. It was actually 7 years ago. I looked that up. It was 2009.
N-
8 years ago.
this was like right before,
you're thinking
before
of
Rogue One.
Battlefront 3, I think.
or not Rogue One. No, I'm talking
the
this
guys
was
the guys that were
that
trying
you
to
played
remake
this-
Battlefront 3.
No, you played this in your browser. It was like a Unity browser engine.
I'm serious,
And-
dude. It was like 8 years ago. That's the thing. It was like many, many years ago. It wasn't just 2. It was
Really?
Oh yeah, it was a long time ago. And someone, Angel of Iron, in YouTube is saying that they've announced a remake of X-Wing versus TIE Fighter a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, no, they didn't.
I think that's the thing that we were talking about. That the HDified resources thing.
We would know if LucasArts announced a new fucking thing. We would know. I mean, someone's redoing it in
It's a fan project.
Yeah,
and
someone's
we talked
redoing
about that earlier.
X-Wing in Unity. Yes, but
Yeah. By the way, Brian, it
Yeah?
was Star Wars Attack Squadrons.
Oh, that wasn't that like a
3 years ago.
that
Disney killed it.
I forgot about that. I forgot
So
all
did
about
everybody.
that. There was another thing coming
was
out in
not good.
2009. Yeah.
I thought that was like I have my TIE fighters and they're going to attack your X-wings, and it was more like almost like a
Yeah,
miniature-
this reminds me more or less of that Battlestar Galactica online kind of game.
Which isn't bad, shockingly. Which is not bad. It's not-
It's okay.
It's not great, but it's not bad. But it's not great.
So what about in Old Republic? All right, the MMO. How's the Starfighter stuff in that? Because they
is
just
there
put it
Starfighter
in
stuff
not
in
so
that?
long ago. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
so
not. It's not.
There's two layers of it. There's like the original Starfighter stuff, which was the rail shooter one, and there's later on Starfighter stuff, which I haven't played. I started playing it again for a little bit, and then I got bored because there's too many buttons, so I didn't get a chance to get to the newer space stuff.
Yeah,
but
the newer space stuff is full on combat though. Like it's not a rail
Yeah.
shooter at all. It's all full on PvP combat with other players.
I guess
Yeah,
the
and I
replacement
wish-
for
and I-
Hutball.
Yeah, Florida
Yeah,
says
and I wish
arena
I could
combat,
have.
and Florida says
Yeah.
just arena combat, which is
Yeah.
Oh, Angel of Orion says something that expands upon the Battlefront ship experience. What?
I haven't heard anything about that.
I've
but hey,
heard
that's-
nothing of this. You might have dreamed that, dude. I'm sorry, but I think someone would have said something. I think one of us would have seen a press release, because I look at press releases every day. I don't.
Yeah, you do a Google search for X-Wing versus TIE Fighter remake, and the only thing that comes up that is remotely close is Star Wars fan recreates 1993's X-Wing in 3D with Unity, which we talked about.
Right.
Yeah, well, anything that they're going to improve in the Battlefront game is going to be in Battlefront 2, which they're calling it Battlefront 2, because
Yeah,
on.
why?
Come
Why
on.
do we have to rename? Like, I
So
do
we're
not
gonna
get
have
that with video
two
games.
Battlefront 2s.
And
Come
2
on.
Battlefronts.
Yeah.
Battlefront and better Battlefront.
Well, it's just like Xbox, the original Xbox, like
And
the
Xbox
Xbox One. No. Like the original, like no, the one before the 360.
The first Xbox and the Xbox One.
So stupid.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, I hope I'll hope that there's another game that comes out that is as cool and as fun as X-Wing and as TIE Fighter and whatever. Like, we haven't talked a lot. We haven't really talked about Rogue One, but to me, like that battle in Rogue One,
Holy
like,
shit!
I want a game of that.
Yeah, can
like,
we
Well,
get that?
what's interesting about that though is Jim and I explored this. I don't know if Brian joined us, but Jim and I explored a few groups out there that actually have still a pretty decent community for X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and X-Wing Alliance with heavy mods.
mhm.
You could, in essence, in the mod community for X-Wing Alliance is kind of like trickled out and almost died. But I remember there was a point in time where there was new ships coming out almost weekly that you could add into X-Wing Alliance and play as, plus the graphical update mod that they had for it that made the ships look super shiny and awesome.
Right.
But like they even added in mods to let you do combat over planetary surfaces, which was a really unique trick. Essentially, the planet is a ship, and the way they did the
Okay,
modeling
so
was right. And the way they did the modeling, it's a ship that doesn't move, so it's a stationary ship. But the way they do the skyboxes and stuff like that, so it makes it look like you're actually doing combat over a planet.
Sweet.
They could, you could almost, in essence, add in all the stuff you needed to do a Battle of Scarif kind of like mission in X-Wing Alliance, today.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing I liked about that battle and just Rogue One in general was we got to see kind of all the OG, the X-Wings. You got to see Y-Wings acting like bombers, which you never really saw before.
No, not in a movie, at least.
Right, and you got to see the ships like moving because you get to the space battle in Jedi and the effects were good enough so that things were happening and stuff was moving fast. But here they're really they're moving the way you think they should be moving.
Sure, like yeah. To be honest with you, I mean, that battle alone was really one of the only highlights for that film for me. There's a lot of other things about the movie that was fun, but really, I mean,
Yeah, it's fair. It doesn't have that same magic that it once did. You can't.
It is what it is.
But yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, let's wrap.
That's another podcast.
That's a whole another podcast. Well, we did a good job, I think, covering all four of the games. I think a lot of good memories. A lot of good memories about these games. And don't forget, folks, if you have not played any of these, they're all on GOG and Steam. If I had to pick one, I'd tell you to get the GOG versions. They're just, I think better. So if you're gonna get these, if you haven't played them yet, get the GOG versions and get a joystick. You need a joystick. Well,
you can't play these games with you. I mean, in theory,
you technically could, but no,
but you
really don't want to, like it all. All right, so just a couple programming notes before we wrap up. Next week on the show, it's going to be an early morning show because our guest is overseas. We are talking to the developer of the newly released space build 'em up, shoot 'em up thing called Avorion. I think that's how you say it, Avorion. So,
yeah, which I'm playing right now.
Oh,
and it's good.
It is good. I've only touched it a little bit, but it's pretty solid so far. So we're talking to him next week, and on Thursday for Multiplayer Madness, by request, we are going to be playing some Path of Exile. That was requested when we were playing Diablo 2 a few weeks ago, so we're going to be playing that on Thursday.
Mixing it up a little bit.
Yeah, mixing it up. Well, usually Thursdays are palate cleanser. That's what I like to call them. But yeah, Joe, before we go, why don't you pimp your show a little bit? We didn't really do that in the beginning, so pimp your show a little bit.
All right. Okay, well, if you like games like X-Wing and TIE Fighter, I talk about a lot of them whenever I get around to doing a show at the Upper Memory Block.
You just had a kid. You have the best excuse in the world. You just had a kid. Sorry, say the website again. Sorry, go ahead.
No, umbcast.com. But and I have to admit I've had some really cool listeners that have stepped up and threw some guest shows onto the feed. So there's still some stuff that's coming out on there. I think there's like 4 other guest shows in the works, and I'm going to try and get something out once I can, be a human again. And like I said at the beginning of the show, if you like Star Wars books, check out the Star Wars stacks at swstack.com. Next one we are talking about is Ahsoka. The current episode on the feed, Rogue One Catalyst, which is the tie-in novel to Rogue One, which really does enhance the movie quite a lot if you read it. So yeah, that's me.
Okay, well, Joe, I want to thank you again for coming on with us. How is the baby doing, by the way? Last question.
The baby is doing very, very well. She's quiet. She likes mariachi music for some reason. Don't ask me why.
Why not?
It makes her dance around. So yeah, that's quite the experience. Let me say.
Well, folks, I want to thank you for listening and watching to the Space Game Junkie podcast. If you haven't already, just subscribe to us on something. YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, whatever. We're on everything, pretty much. So if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. And we'll see you for the next episode. Thank you so much for listening, everyone, and have a great night.